You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, the Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark White, and with me today is Amy and Kelvin. I'm so excited to have you both here.
Hey, how are you both? I'm so glad to be back with you for a second week.
Yeah, so Kelvin and Mark get to podcast together officially as hosts.
I'm so disappointed that I had to miss last week, and I missed Kelvin's inaugural episode. And I listened to it, and it was great. I just couldn't, yell at my radio and participate.
I was very well looked after by Christos and Amy, Mark. So yeah, but let's treat it as another first. This is our first podcast together, so I get to have two firsts.
Yes. So, did you guys check out New Prodigy?
I have.
Yes.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on the last couple of episodes of Prodigy?
Personally, I can't believe it's so good. It just seems to be getting better and better. This week, in particular, seemed almost a little bit like a pilot. It had some, like, all the characters' backstory, and what a strange kind of place in the season to have it. Like, depending on how you're viewing the seasons as part 1, part 2, but it was like episode 15. So to then get all of the full exposition of the, additional Diviner and the Vindicator, and then all the primary characters' backstories, it was great. But certainly with Jank and Pog, I only now started to like that character in this episode because I've seen the backstory. At first, I've just found him quite annoying. So if they'd done that earlier, I wouldn't have been so harsh on him.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you were talking, that was my exact thought of, wow, we're learning so much about these characters, and yeah, it's so late. However, I absolutely love the placement of it because they were vulnerable to each other. Had they done it before, they wouldn't have developed the relationships, the trust, or the family, or the Starfleet feel that we're a family. It wouldn't have worked, and they couldn't have been that vulnerable. And so I thought the placement of it was perfect.
I was a little disappointed with the fact that we did learn about Dahl's origins, but they didn't have this flashback to Dahl being created or Dahl, little, baby Dahl or something. We could have seen the Soongs. So I was a little disappointed that he didn't actually get like a scene where he showed his backstory. They mentioned it, but they didn't really show anything. And that would have been a cool opportunity to get a little bit more background.
Well, maybe since let's go as far and say the primary character, maybe they're saving that for an episode in itself, and they just wanted to take care of like Zero and Rock Talk and Jankum.
Yeah. Oh, Zero. Zero's still tragic though, because the poor guy's still stuck in a suit. But I guess if he got out of the suit, he would hypnotize everybody. So there's that.
So, question for you. Do you believe that these characters are kids? Because now I feel like they've had this previous life, and if they are kids, then they would have been even younger doing those things. Now I'm confused of what age are these characters?
Yeah, I think maybe with Zero, that might be an interesting concept, just because the Medusans are so alien. But I think it's been established quite clearly that Rock Talk is a child. And even Jankum obviously was in cryostasis as a child, came out early. So you might say, well, he's not really a child because he's a few hundred years old. But it depends on the way you look at it.
This is actually one of the first times in Star Trek, if not the first time in Star Trek, we have seen this whole other society using the cryostasis. Usually it's like 20th century, Americans that are in cryostasis and they come out and they're playing the banjo. But like, we don't really have that so much. We don't see Klingons coming out of the cryo freeze or whatever, and so it's interesting to see that from another perspective, another species.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's weird as well how they're reintroducing a lot of the Delta Quadrant species as well. The Kazon had a lot of content in this episode, and I thought, Kazons were really quite useless, weren't they? Let's face it. They didn't even have water. How are they going to capture a load of Medusans?
Well, weren't they future Kazons, or I don't even know what time period this takes place in. I'm still confused as to what the timey-wimey aspect of it. I know that the ship gets lost in the future, but then it goes back in the past. And how far in the future was it? How far back in the past is it? Where are we? I
know
the whole thing's. It's confusing to me, and I'm an adult. I don't know about
I know
the kids.
Time period that it's set, but there's all this now. Kind of that was a backstory, but how far back is it? And then the Chakotay sending the ship back. It was cool to see Chakotay actually in the episode. That was a great moment.
Yeah, didn't they mention that at STLV this year, Amy?
Yeah.
So we get the little scoop, so that was cool. Well, we did get some feedback, pushing onward. We got some feedback for the last episode, which I was not on. But it was a fantastic episode. And I have to say, before we get into the feedback, that last episode was very popular, and I'd like to think it was Kelvin's fault. It rocketed to be one of the most popular episodes we've dropped in months. We get the most listeners last episode that we've had in a very long time, so that's got to be Kelvin's fault. That's all I can say. Gotta be. I mean, what's different? It's Kelvin, so...
Am I the independent variable?
Yes, you are.
And I promise only half of those listeners were me listening back to myself.
Downloading on everyone else's phone. Give me your phone download. Give me your phone download.
I may or may not do that myself with my iPad, my computer. So Matt Harker, who actually is a new Patreon supporter, he commented, "I watched The Chase last week, and it definitely made this episode of All Good Things all the more meaningful." So that's really sweet.
That's good.
I love it when I can watch an episode and then listen to a podcast, within a relatively short amount of time, because, it definitely makes it more meaningful. So thank you, Matt, for watching along and listening.
Our good friend Davey Ryan said, fabulous episode choice. So thank you, Davey. Maybe it's going to prompt him to create some more content for Trexperts quiz based around The Chase now. And while we say Trexperts quiz as well, Matt Harker, I'd just like to say he did a fantastic performance on Trexperts quiz the other week when he was playing against AJ and came very close to beating my high score. So I was quite nervous.
Oh, yeah. And Kelvin, you are going to be on Trexperts quiz again as the scorekeeper this time, right?
Yeah, a little spoiler. So I'm going to be recording another podcast later today with Davey where I am scorekeeping. So we've all had a go now on scorekeeping on Trexperts. I wonder how I'm going to rate against you guys. I think, Amy, you were quite strict. You were my scorekeeper. You deducted more.
Yes, I was.
You deducted more points from me than you actually allowed to pass. And Mark, if I seem to remember, I think you were quite drunk when you were doing it, so you were very free and easy.
Well, I asked beforehand if drinking is okay, and he said more than okay. He's encouraged. I was like, okay, let's go. So I was a little free and loose with the points. Hopefully, I'm going to be back on as a contestant soon in the next couple of weeks, and I'm hoping whoever is a scorekeeper for my episode is also a little free and loose and fun. Because as our listeners know, my memory is not so good. So I will do my best, but I guarantee you I will have fun.
Well, I was going to say that's the main thing, but I'm hugely competitive. So it's not in my book. I get the points.
Well, now it's time for All Good World.
From Las Vegas to Boston, USA to Canada and South America, from the United Kingdom to South Africa, from Russia to Australia, the South Pacific and beyond. This is All Good World.
Each episode, we highlight a different location around the globe where this podcast has reached. Today's episode, we'd love to give a special shout out to Spain. Fun fact, Spain has one of the longest life expectancies in the world, 83.5 years. And that number comes from 2019 data. It also ranks particularly high in healthcare quality, with its healthcare system considered to be one of the most efficient worldwide. So that's really cool. Yeah.
I did not know about that and their healthcare, and that is pretty darn awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's like the wine and the nice climate.
There's definitely a reason I holiday in Spain every year.
Mm-hmm.
Good food. I've never been, but that is a go-to destination for me. I will be visiting, guarantee you listeners, I will be checking out Spain at some point in the next few years. I have it as a goal, life goal. I will be going.
Well, I hear there's a lovely place. Sitges? Is that how you say it?
It is, yeah. So it's just outside of Barcelona, a little bit further west, maybe about 20 minutes on the train. Me and all our friends go for our annual gaycation every year and paint the town red or pink.
It's my goal to get there one year with you.
Amazing.
Alrighty. Well, today we are continuing our Holodeck Malfunctions series, part 5, if you are counting along with us. And we are covering a Deep Space Nine episode, Our Man Bashir. Now, we previously have covered TNG's The Big Goodbye, Voyager's Bride of Chaotica, Lower Deck's I Excretus, and Voyager's The Killing Game. So this Our Man Bashir fits right in.
Okay, so moving on to the plot of the episode. It's a great fun episode. Dr. Bashir takes center stage in this episode. He's playing a holosuite game portraying a glamorous secret agent in 1964. And his friend Elam Garrick, who is, of course, a former spy himself, tags along. Meanwhile, the other officers of Deep Space Nine are rescued from the explosion of a runabout by Commander Eddington, who beams them out in the nick of time. And the transporter is damaged by the explosion, and Eddington must store the patterns in the station's computer memory. The physical patterns end up in the computer's holosuite, appearing as characters in Bashir's simulation. Eddington informs Bashir that he can't shut down the program or let the characters die, or else the patterns of the crew members may be deleted. And making matters worse, the holodeck's safeties are disabled, meaning Bashir and Garrick could also be hurt or killed by the game.
This was quite the episode. I don't have this in the notes, but Eddington, it was interesting to see him in this role as the savior of the crew. Because without his work, they all would have died. And then come to find out, woo, spoiler, if you haven't seen it in the last 40 years. But spoiler, he ends up being Maquis, right?
Yeah, traitor.
Absolutely. So clearly, if this was a known storyline plot point at this point, Eddington could have saved himself a huge job by just getting rid of all of his opponents. He could have had all of the industrial replicators that he wanted for the Maquis.
Oh, my Lord. Well, Julian spends his off hours in the holosuite playing a secret agent version of himself in 20th century Earth. If you guys had a holodeck or a holosuite at your disposal, what program would you be running?
So are we thinking...
This is a very interesting question. I saw it in the outline, and so I was like, man... So does it have to be a book is my question.
No.
Oh, okay. Because usually it's based on some kind of novel, right? The Big Goodbye But so
they have in lower decks. They have the naked Olympic training or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's not a book. I was thinking if it were a book, I would like to run like the Little Women program, just because that era is so foreign to me, and fun costumes and those dresses, and I don't know, I think it would be fun. But for a time period, I don't know if it wasn't based on a book, but that's just sort of my first instinct. Kelvin, what about you?
Yeah, it is such a great question, because for us who are all such fans of Star Trek, we would want to be in Starfleet, in the real world, in inverted commas. So to ask a question of if we were in Starfleet and with those guys and given the opportunity to then run a program of something different, like a book series, what would we do? So yeah, I think the I Excretus kind of, choose a funny episode and place ourselves in that. That could be something fun. So, maybe we could put ourselves in the game next generation and go and help Wesley or something like that, or go and fight the Borg in Best of Both Worlds.
That's great. Yeah, what a cool idea.
Oh yeah, I like that idea better.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
What about you, Mark?
So my first thought immediately went to Ryza. And I was like, I'd be on a Ryza program with some cocktails and some scantily clad gentlemen. But I also think about the last episode, one of the last episodes we saw of Lower Decks, where Mariner, we all remember she had that split with her mom where they got in this huge fight over the interview that was conducted on the Cerritos. And everybody was blaming her, and she was like, you know what? Heck with this. I was the one person standing up for Mom, but she's not even believing me, so I'm just going to go. And she left Starfleet, and she ended up going and working for that guild, that archaeology guild, and it ended up being funded by Picard, spoiler alert. But I was like, this kind of scenario for me would be fun to play out as almost this Indiana Jones in space, archaeologists fighting against the Ferengi, trying to get these lost artifacts. It's like, that would be fun for me. So yeah, I'd go with that.
What an interesting way to link back to last week's episode of The Chase. It's almost like you're getting your comments in there, Mark, from what you missed last week.
Gotta get it in there somehow.
Nice. And when I was watching this episode, knowing that it was a holodeck malfunction, I was so impressed with the creative nature that it was solved, and that it's not really a malfunction. I mean, I guess it is, because they can't access the exit and they can't let characters die and the safeties are off. So that is truly a malfunction. But the way that they were put in doesn't make it a malfunction. Like, it's just a creative, unique way to use the holodeck. I was just super impressed with the creativity of it all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was ready to have a little bit of a discussion with you, Amy, about this not being a malfunction, because when I rewatched earlier, the computer voice does say unable to comply due to station-wide emergency. So I was like, haha, malfunction. So it's not just about not calling for the arch or the exit or pausing the program. So yeah, it wasn't responding as it should.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you'll notice as you go along, Kelvin, Amy and I get a little free and loose with our series, and we let some things slide. Like, our Holodeck Malfunctions series was supposed to be like, oh, the holodeck has malfunction, but we've let some slide where it's not been. I think the primary idea is that we focus on episodes throughout Trek where the crew spend most of the time on the holodeck for various reasons, typically because they're stuck, but not really always.
Excellent.
And what a fun James Bond-esque episode. I think it's so fun when Trek does that. Like we have, our in TNG, our, Die Hard.
I was thinking maybe
Oh my gosh.
Next Gen's version of this surely would be Sherlock Holmes.
Okay, help me out, Kelvin.
Right.
So it's the one where Picard has to go back and grab his saddle because every serious writer has a saddle.
Yes.
What's that episode?
Starship Mine.
Starship Mine. That has an equivalent movie that's related, that it's similar to. And what's that movie called? Okay, listeners, I know you're all screaming at me. You let me know in the comments, please.
I only watched 13 movies and they've all got Star Trek in the title, so I can't help.
Well, this episode, let's get back to James Bond, because there are some ridiculous innuendos. I was initially thinking Moneypenny from James Bond, and so Bashir's Moneypenny is Mona Loves It. Hello,
Oh, my
please. So obvious, so corny, so terrible, but I'm sorry, I do love it. And then we have Honey Bear, spelled B-A-R-E, of course, not the, animal. It's bear, naked honey bear. So those ridiculous innuendos throughout the episode, absolutely very Bond-esque. And I feel like it's specific to the Pierce Brosnan era of sort of how over the top, especially like where he uses the cork to as a weapon. It just seemed very Pierce Brosnan to me. How did you guys, do you feel like, obviously it's James Bond, but do you feel it's a Pierce Brosnan or do you just get an in general?
I've seen. I'm quite a Bond aficionado because my partner James, who you all know very well, not James Bond, the lovely James Draper. He is a huge Bond fan. He's read all the novels, watches the film, and he loves this episode because he says it's the point in which his two franchises come together that he loves so much. And his favourite Bond is Roger Moore. Although a lot of the films that we tend to watch, and I actually got more of a Roger Moore period of Bond, mainly because of the over sexism almost that came with it, and that slapstick champagne cork moment. So that was definitely one of the hallmarks of James Bond for me, was particularly the Mona Loves It moment where she says, "Is there anything else I can get for you?" And Siddig basically stares down at her cleavage and then just says, "I'll let you know." It's like, come on, that is so Bond. And can you imagine that in Deep Space Nine or Trek anywhere else these days?
Timothy Dalton is my go-to Bond, and so I get more of a Timothy Dalton from this, because that was a certain period in Bond where it was this convergence of the more sort of comedy stuff and the gadgets, but the gadgets hadn't at that point gone too crazy. They were still sort of believable spy gadgets, and the quirky the one-liners, like when Timothy Dalton's Bond is going down the side of the mountain and he's in the cello case, right? And they're escaping, the snipers. I think he's crossing borders into another country, and they yell at him. They're like, "Do you have anything to declare?" And he's like, "Nothing but the cello," And I don't know, it always makes me laugh, but it's that humor aspect of Bond that I get from it. So when I was watching this episode, I was thinking of Timothy Dalton.
Well, that is very interesting. So it must apply to all the Bonds, and you recognize the one that you recognize with, because I prefer Pierce Brosnan. That's pretty cool that we all like a different Bond.
Yeah, and do you know what, Mark? I must point out, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that Timothy Dalton is their favourite. We was only in 2 films.
Yeah, I know. He was supposed to be in the third. He was supposed to be in the one that Pierce Brosnan was in. But here's the thing. They originally tried to get Pierce Brosnan, but he was tied to Remington Steele or whatnot, and so he couldn't do Bond, and so they brought in Dalton to be Bond in Pierce Brosnan's place, and then when he became available, they just edged out Dalton. But Dalton's great, and I loved him in The Rocketeer as well. Like, he's a great actor, and he doesn't get enough credit for his, contributions to cinema,
Agreed.
in my opinion.
Also did a very good job in The Crown this year, that he was just in season 5.
Oh, I need to watch it.
Oh, it is good.
I didn't know he was in it.
It's good. Some other connections. The music was just great. Very similar. I loved the card game where it's like all or nothing. Well, I need 5 million francs and, all right, here it is. Because I'm going to take all your money. It's an all-in Baccarat type of game.
You mentioned the music of the episode. So with Bond, the theme tracks to each Bond film is such an event, and it's such great prestige for an artist to actually get a Bond theme under the belt. Of course, the iconic Shirley Bassey did 3 Bond themes, so she is the voice of Bond, the self-proclaimed voice of Bond. But what I loved about this episode was it was such a great mashup, if you will, of Deep Space Nine music and Bond. I thought they handled it really, really well.
Absolutely. Like, there were some horns and stuff in there, and yeah, it was cool.
One of the things that you mentioned here in the notes was about the champagne cork at the beginning. And it's interesting that it's almost foreshadowing, because at this point in Deep Space Nine, there was no knowledge of Dr. Bashir's genetic background and his kind of enhanced hand-eye coordination. So the fact that he sees Falcon coming in the reflection of the bottle, turns around, shoots him, aims, gets him on the head, knocks him unconscious, at the time just seems quite ridiculous. But really, is that Bashir using his genetic predisposition to great hand-eye coordination, and it's actually quite easy, like he does with the darts?
Well, but that, to your point, Kelvin, where he almost, just perfectly misses but gets Garrick, I think you're onto something.
Just a flesh wound.
But it definitely impresses Garrick.
I was surprised in this episode to see Worf. When he came on screen, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, he's in this season. That's right. Of course, Worf's there. But I had forgotten. And I think his character in this, although it was brief, I think it was perfect for Michael Dorn, perfect for Worf. What a great choice to have him be that particular, like the head henchman of the villain or whatever, and he's sitting there, and it reminds me of some of the great henchmen in the Bond films, right? Like especially the early Bond films, where they had the very memorable sidekick henchmen.
Odd Job or Jaws.
Yeah, exactly.
When speaking of Worf, obviously this was so early on in Worf's stint in Deep Space Nine, and they hadn't really figured out what to do with him yet. And I always thought the scene at the beginning where they're all sat in the runabout before it explodes, even just looking at Worf sat there, he doesn't know what to do. What does he comment on? Anything engineering related or what? It's almost like he just steals one of O'Brien's lines to give him something to do. Bless him. I have a very strange obsession with the runabouts on Deep Space Nine, and I always find it quite an occasion when one is either blown up or a new one comes in and we see it named for the first time. So special honourable mention to the Orinoco here, which is one of the season 2 runabouts that is an original replacement for one of the first 3 that is blown up, either the Ganges or the Ansi Kiang. So we get the Orinoco very early on in season 2, and we lose it here in series 4. So very good.
What is that name?
The Orinoco.
And what is, what is that name?
Right. So all of the Deep Space Nine runabouts are named after rivers in the world. So you have the Rio Grande, the Yansi Kiang, the Ganges, the Rubicon, the Mekong, So yeah, in fact the only DS9 runabout we don't see, which is quite obvious, would be the Nile. You know, the River Nile is one of the
Oh.
most famous rivers in the world, but we don't get a USS
Yes.
Nile. So yeah, there's even a joke in one of the episodes where they get a new runabout delivered and they say, "Well, what should we call it?" And Major Kira says, "It's a good job there's so many rivers on your planet," to Sisko. I think that's when they christen the Rubicon.
Oh, wow. It's one of those things that I noticed but didn't consciously notice. Like, I knew the different names of some of the runabouts, but I didn't put two and two together that, yes, they all had that theme. Similar to, like, on the Cerritos, where they're all, like, national parks
Yeah,
or whatnot.
exactly.
Yeah. And this is why Calvin is on All Good Things.
I told you I would bring a little bit of Deep Space Nine background for you.
I'm bringing a feature of It's Green onto All Good Things. In the previous episode of It's Green, we acted out some scenes from the movie Ed Wood, and so I thought it would be fun to do a little acting this week on All Good Things as well.
Are you assigning out the roles, Mark?
I'll let you choose what role, Kelvin, you'd like to be.
Well, I think as the token Brit amongst us, I think it'd be rude for me not to take James Bond or Julian Bashir, however you want. Hey, I've only just realised the JB.
Initials.
Wow, that has never occurred to me. JB, Julian Bashir, James Bond.
Yeah.
Excellent.
When you said James Bond, I was like, well, that's Julian Bashir. And then I was like, oh, initials.
So, Amy, I guess that makes you Garrick for this scene.
Oh, no, that will be Mark.
Yeah,
Yes.
Amy has one scene to herself. We'll save at the end, but it'll be you and I for a couple of them.
Right, okay then. Well, let's start it out. So, I work for one of the nation states of this era, Great Britain, which is battling various other nations in what is called the Cold War. This apartment, my clothes, weapons, even my valet were provided to me by my government.
I think I have joined the wrong intelligence service.
Oh, that
you.
is so funny because is it a known fact that Garrick is a spy, or do we just think he was a spy?
Where are we in the time? We're season 4. So I'm pretty sure it is now established, because especially to Bashir, because in season 2 he went to meet in Arbor and Tain, he found out about Garrick's implants, and then we had the whole events of Improbable Cause, the die is cast, where the Obsidian Order went into the Gamma Quadrant. So I think it's fully established by season 4.
Okay.
Garrick was a former Obsidian Order member.
Okay, cool.
I'm afraid I don't believe you'll pull that trigger.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
It's time to face the reality, Doctor. You're a man who dreams of being a hero because you know deep down that you're not. I'm no hero either, but I know how to make a choice, and I'm choosing to save myself. I have so much fun with these. We should do this more often. Amy's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, let's see. When am I out?
Amy's like, I'm writing the script next week.
Yes, because I will be channeling. Who is the bad guy?
To Noah.
Cisco.
Hippocrates, no.
Oh, Noah. Yes. Because, Avery Brooks. Whew, he's a tough one to play. There comes a time when a house has been so damaged by termites that you must not only kill the termites, but demolish the house and build again.
Well done.
Yay.
I always find
Yes.
Avery Brooks' delivery in this episode is, well, it's amazing, let's face it. But he has to play a very Bond-esque villain who it's
Over the
a very
top.
traditional, this person is a villain because they've got some form of mental health issue kind of crazy villain. Which in kind of the modern storytelling era is pretty much frowned upon because it almost like makes fun of people with mental health issues. But the way Avery plays like just a demonic Dr. Noah with that kind of that laughing and everything that he does, it's amazing. And doesn't get enough credit.
So, Avery Brooks, to me, is at his best whenever he is not Ben Sisko. And I mean that because as Ben Sisko, he has to be somewhat controlled and somewhat almost like Picard-like, just a representation of Starfleet, the best of the best, right? But when he is mirror Sisko, he gets to be a little bit more, off the rails. And when he is in, what is that, the most famous Deep Space Nine episode?
Where he's Benny?
Far Beyond the Stars. He gets to play this side of this tragic man in the 1950s that's literally given his whole life for his passion, and it's being stripped away. And you're watching it all just, his life fall apart essentially when he's, losing his job, his opportunity to tell his stories. And he again gets to show this whole range that he doesn't get to show when he's just Commander Sisko. So I think, like I said, my favorite Ben Sisko moments or Avery Brooks moments are not when he's Sisko, but when he's playing these other versions of the character. How do you feel about that, Kelvin?
It's what tremendous range it shows. I don't think there's many other captains who get to show that side of them. I'm just really struggling and drawing a blank, certainly with Janeway and Picard. I know obviously Picard's got Dixon Hill, Janeway's in a little Jane Austen holo novel series, but for Sisko to show that heartbreak of Benny Russell, particularly at the end when he just breaks down physically on the floor, is wonderful. And even in the later seasons when he's having the Par-Wraith visions and he's kind of in the asylum and he's on Tyree with the Orb of the Emissary, that is almost not the Ben Sisko that we know. So yeah, I think it's quite a bold statement to say that we like Avery Brooks when he's not Ben Sisko, but I definitely see where you're going with it.
What did you guys think about Major Kira's character in this? And sort of to your point, like watching, Kira be Mir what's her?
Colonel Kamonanov.
What? Yeah. So to see her and then, this is something so fun. And at the first part of the episode, I was like, oh, there she is, just some sexy, thing in a satin dress. But that they make her a spy for the Russians, like that gives her intelligence. She's smart. And then by the end of the episode where they're, on their island, whatever, she's very useful. And so I sort of jumped a little bit too early, but they did write her very well.
I love Nanar's performance in this episode. I would actually go as far to say it's my favorite aspect of this episode. And there's so much to unpack there. So there's the Bond parallel. It's a well-known plot device in Bond to have the sexy temptress turns out to be, a double-crossing villain or etc. So they really copied that, let's face it. But what I love is if you also think about the real-life aspect. So this is Siddig and Nanar would have not long been together in real life while they were filming this episode. So that playful nature between them, the flirting, would have been so much fun for them to act. And the physical comedy that Nanar uses in her introduction scene on the bed that spins around, where she says, "I wish I could relax you, but I am here on business," and produces a little pamphlet from behind. Amazing. It is. And what we all know and love of Nanar from seeing her at conventions and on the cruise, she would have loved doing that. So yeah, bravo, Nanar. Right, well, shall we have a look at some trivia on this episode? What have you got for us, Mark?
Well, we get a lot of trivia to unpack here, which is great about any of the 90s Trek. There's been so many years of just conventions and podcasts and interviews from all different outlets to get a whole wealth of information about each episode. And so that's what I love about whenever we dive into like the 90s era Trek or before, we're able to get a bunch more background. And so that's what's fun. We have a ton today. The first I have up here is the producers were very wary of doing a holodeck malfunction story due to the number of times it had been done on The Next Generation. But writer Bob Gillen, his pitch was so unique, using the transporter to store the patterns of the crew in the holodeck matrix, that the producers decided they could make a good episode.
And so glad
Awesome.
they made that decision, because it's a great episode.
Me too. It's such a great standalone rewatch episode as well. You know, it doesn't require much. You can just jump straight in, and even for a casual viewer, it's so great. But when you say about the original pitch, is it really that original? Doing a James Bond ripoff.
Right. Well, most Deep Space Nine episodes shot in 7 days, with an occasional episode taking 8. Our man Bashir took 9 days of shooting, and according to producer Steve Oster, it had the longest production of any single episode. The main reason for this were elaborate stunts that took time to set up and reshoot after a take, and a large number of complex sets, many of which presented their own unique problems. I mean, sort of like, that spinning bedroom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we mentioned the music earlier on, but Jay Chataway composed the music for this episode, and he commented that he had to fight pretty hard to get to do it. Normally, the holodeck type shows you can't get too crazy on. Even Fistful of Datas on TNG, the way he did those, scored them in advance and brought in examples to a meeting and said, "This is what I'd like to do. This is how you would have to be done." And they say, fine, just don't go crazy, keep it Star Trek, but put those elements in. The challenge on the James Bond thing was to do Bond and not infringe on the copyright. So you pull something off like that and get good feedback about it, they're a little less likely to put the clamps on. So that's kind of what I said earlier, wasn't it, about how it was so recognizable as still being DS9, but it was so dramatic and Bond-esque. So, again, bravo to the score. What a great job he did.
Yeah. And this was mentioned before also, that this is one of Nana Visitor's favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. And she commented, it was so much fun that the show was a joy to do. How many times, is it a necessity to do a bad Russian accent? I was in heaven. It was ideal for me. And to come out of the wall in a round bed, it doesn't get any better than that. So, yeah, evidently she had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I can totally hear her saying that. And yes, how often do you need to do a bad Russian accent? That's cool. I love that.
It reminds me.
If it's a bad accent, I could do it.
Reminds me of Picard in Stardust City Rag, where he had to do the really over-the-top bad French accent.
Yes.
Oh, so much fun. One of my favorite episodes.
Although Ronald D. Moore attempted to avoid directly referencing any of his primary influences, it seemed that some names and situations skated a little too close for comfort. After this episode aired, the producers got an angry letter from MGM, the studio which holds the rights to the James Bond property. The DS9 companion doesn't reveal the content of the letter, other than to say, quote, apparently MGM did not find the imitation to be the sincerest form of flattery, end quote. As such, in the 5th season episode, A Simple Investigation, which returns to Bashir's holonovel, the references to Bond are far more subtle.
Wow.
Wow.
Someone really didn't do their due diligence here, thinking it was just fine to go ahead and do it. And I think it was, I mentioned earlier, Sherlock Holmes, Elementary Dear Data. Those stories are so old that copyright has just completely dropped off and you can just say it. Whereas here, this is something that is still controlled, still operated, a current franchise. And when they said in that quote there about the subtle differences, it's about as subtle as being hit in the face by a brick. This is James Bond.
Yes. This is bonk bonk on the head.
Yeah. Andrew Robinson actually commented, Garrick, that the James Bond spoof that we did was a lot of fun. It was hellish to film because I spent hours in that makeup on the show than any other show. The show was a bear, he called it. They really were trying to do a James Bond movie, but it was an enormous amount of fun. And I thought that Winrich Kolb, who directed, did a wonderful job on it. Unfortunately, we ran afoul of the James Bond people, and they were going to do a lot of those, but this was the one and only.
Yeah, it's too bad they put the kibosh on that, because that could have been fun for a few more seasons to dip in and out of the Bond universe in DS9.
I wonder if that's why they went down the genetic route with Bashir. If this was maybe going to be Bashir's thing, Paris has Captain Proton, and they would return to it season after season. Maybe they just thought there's not a lot going on with Dr. Bashir. Let's spice it up a little bit. So what else could they have done with Bond, I wonder? Because of this unique way that the characters or the actors are in the program, how would they get them to return, or would they even return? Would it just be Garrick and Bashir? And if so, how would that have developed their storyline a little bit? Maybe Garrick would have been the next Bond girl.
Oh my goodness. In my head canon, that's what happens.
Yep, mine too now.
So this isn't trivia, but this is just, while we're talking trivia, this is just a thought that I had while watching it, both times I watched it. If you guys remember from First Contact, Picard famously has to fight the Borg, and he goes onto the holodeck. The set for me is very familiar, and the set looks strikingly like the set for the casino. Like some of the same elements, and I'm like, well, filmed on the same lot, same art department, possibly some of these sets would have been reused for that, and I don't know, so it's not really trivia, but it's just like, I had a flash of that while watching. I was like, this looks like the set from First Contact.
Probably only about 6 months apart, maybe. So Series 4 of DS9 was the year before First Contact. So First Contact was set during Season 5 of DS9. So they might have... You may be right, Mark. It may have been identical.
Wow.
Maybe, well, now is another excuse. As if I needed an excuse to watch First Contact again. Well, on the Bond route, this episode aired 10 days after the release of GoldenEye, the first Bond film in 6 years, and also the first of the James Bond pictures to feature Pierce Brosnan, and generally considered the picture that revived the then ailing Bond franchise. In addition to being an interesting Bond homage in its own right, it was intended to capitalize on some of the Bond pre-release excitement.
Wow, I can definitely now see why MGM Studios sent a letter to Star Trek. I did not know it was so released just that close to GoldenEye. Wow.
Yeah, someone's got some balls over at Paramount.
Right?
What I find really interesting is if you think of the actresses that have been in Bond, now looking back, that have also been in Star Trek. So famously, we had Michelle Yeoh in Bond as one of the Bond girls, and we also had Frank Jensen, who was in TNG, The Perfect Mate. She was one of the Bond girls as well. In fact, was that actually GoldenEye? I think that was the one she was in. So you could almost reverse the headcanon and say, watching the Bond films, they've stored some more physical patterns of Starfleet personnel.
Yeah. Well, 47, I love the 47 references, and we do get one here. However, it is reversed when Dr. Noah mentions he has 74 lasers deployed around the world. And I picked that up, but I'm like, oh, that's too bad it wasn't 47. But yet, in a way, it is. So we'll take it.
Yeah, they did it on purpose.
Yes. And I'm just going to throw it out there because I got the chance to go to the college football championship game for my conference, and the Utah Utes, who won over USC, and the final score, 47-24. My Utah Utes and Star Trek. I love it when those two worlds combine because they just don't ever. But they did today. Yay! Go Utes! All right, I'm done. Put the college football away. Okay.
You've got two gay guys here, Amy. We're not really going to get too excited about sports. I'm missing an England World Cup football match, which is happening while we're recording this.
Oh dear.
Oh, don't feel bad. This is a perfect excuse not to watch football. I hate it.
Well, guys, let's get to some assimilations or regenerations. Now, all good things, we like to break down the positive and negative aspects of each episode. Things that we like are assimilated, and things that we don't are sent back to the regeneration chamber. All right.
Yeah, I got a regeneration
Okay.
here. So Garrick, he shows up. This is right at the beginning. He shows up on the holosuite, and he's already dressed in a 20th century tuxedo, but he didn't know what program was running beforehand, supposedly. Yeah, this is a regeneration for me.
It's so interesting. They play with the clothing a lot in Star Trek and Holodecks, in that sometimes you walk in your regular clothes and the clothes are just part of the simulation. So when you deactivate the program, your tux would disappear and you're just wearing your regular clothes underneath. So maybe he was just entered as Garrick and the program knew to put the tux on him. So that's kind of one way of getting around this. But then the other, if he did know, also, how would... maybe I'm just getting conscious of getting a little older and my collar size getting bigger, but imagine getting a tuxedo onto a Cardassian neck.
Oh. True that.
Oh wow! Good thing they had a tailor right there.
Well, I was reading in Memory Alpha, and it says that Mona Loves It dresses Garrick in a tux. So, did we miss that?
So, I don't think she dresses him in a tux. She dresses something more casual. So, in the scene where they return, obviously before Mona dies, she says, "Would you like something to change into that's a little more comfortable?" And then Bashir says, "Let's find something else for Mr. Garrick too." And he's actually wearing a roll neck sweater and just a blazer over the top. So that's what she dresses him in.
Oh, okay. Well, this regeneration I think is amazing. So Garrick busts in on Julian's holosuite program, right? Because he's like, "Oh, I'm worried about you. You keep disappearing. What's going on?" And it's illegal. Like, it's not supposed to. Well, how many times that happened? Because there's a lot of times this, like, hollow pursuits in TNG, like people just bust in.
Yeah.
We know, like, no, you don't, do these things, but yet here it is. So how many times are we doing this and we just gonna, oh, okay, Garrick's here, let's continue along.
Yeah, they even do it in the Orville. I mean, people just walk in, and what's his name? The big guy? Clyden. Yeah, he's in there. Clyden's in there having a quite a sexy time romp there. Next, check that out, listeners.
That's just your own fault for not locking the door.
Right.
Although if someone's going to be able to sneak past a door encryption, it's going to be Garrick.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, I would like to assimilate something, and I loved the use of Rom in this episode. Now, Rom doesn't appear in every DS9 episode, but he's always memorable when he does. What I love about his character is there is this duality to him of being, at face value, kind of the idiot, right? And I think that's how a lot of the people that work with him and around him sort of treat him. However, low-key, he's a genius. And so he was able to cobble together what he could from around the bar and fix the holosuite program, or fix the holosuites.
With spatula.
With a spatula, yeah.
Amazing. Another assimilation for this episode, which is quite topical, is that if you think of Worf as Dushan in this episode, he looks very similar to the popular Worf as Colonel Sanders meme that is doing the rounds on social media at the moment. So obviously we've got Picard season 3 with an older Worf with graying hair. And people have been saying, doesn't he look like the Colonel from KFC? So the fact in this episode he's wearing the white suit, very, very funny.
I laughed right out loud when I saw that. I was like, oh my God, he's in a white suit.
Oh my gosh, I didn't make that connection. I didn't know what this assimilation was. It's like, Colonel Sanders, what's going on? So
You haven't seen that meme?
no, I guess not.
Oh, it's all over the interwebs. All the kids are talking about it.
You're the one who posts it everywhere, Mark.
No, I posted one after watching this episode with the side-by-side. But it's only because I kept seeing it in all my other groups.
Maybe you just want a KFC for dinner.
Never. No, their chickens have like 3 heads and 16 eyeballs and whatever. They're so genetically modified, you can't even call them a chicken. There's no way. That'd be like torture to me if you forced me to eat one of their chickens.
Noted.
Anyway, with that said, do we have any final thoughts on today's episode, guys?
Sure, I'll give my final thoughts. This episode is so much fun, and lucky me, because I don't remember that many DS9 episodes. I did know it was the James Bond one, but I had no idea what the story was. And so, yes, like I was just so astonished at how creative it was for them to, you know, get to the ending, but then extend it. And so to work through it and to agree with your villain, like, what? Who does that? But that's exactly what needed to be done to preserve the program, to make it go longer. I just found it so creative. And then you've got your 2 stories, your A plot and your B plot, that come together, you know, because they are going through, and that's what saves the day. Like, it just was weaved so much fun into it. I really enjoy this episode.
What about you, Mark?
I would say, yeah, I agree with the points that Amy made. And something that came up in my head while she was talking is that I was thinking about if you could relate it to today, right? And if you could relate it to especially kids that are, watching Deep Space Nine or TNG for the first time, like in the 90s, that might also be into video games, right? And so you have some kids at home that they got a new video game and they are spending sometimes weeks or months to get to a certain level, and they're taking it so seriously. I got to get to Mom, I can't come to dinner, I'm doing, I'm playing my game, whatever. And so you got to think of it from that aspect. And here's Bashir, who knows how long he's been playing this simulation to get to the big boss level at the end. And so there's all that pressure on him, and he's been working at this probably for weeks or months to get to the big boss at the end. And he has to throw it all away to save his friends, and he does, and it's like, heck with it. All right, I'm going to join up with the baddie, and we are going to make the lasers happen and whatever, because he's has to prolong their lives, And so I think about it from that aspect, like the kids playing video games. It's like playing for so long just to get to that baddie and win, and then having to make that choice of, nope, I am going to side with the baddie, and I'm not going to win, but my friends will live. And so I looked at it from that perspective. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've never thought of it that way before. I just thought it was, they just needed another 30 seconds of something to, before they can get the transporter working. But yeah, that kind of investment, because Garrett does say at the beginning, we've not seen you. Where have you been hiding in this program for weeks? So clearly he's been working hard. I love this episode. We're directly in the middle of Deep Space Nine's run. Things have not yet got too heavy with the Dominion war aspect. We're just on good standalone episodes. A lot of people would agree that season 4 was Deep Space Nine's strongest. There's so many great episodes there, and this is probably in the top few of the season. So it's great. Very brave. Some might say very stupid of them to actually copy James Bond, but I loved it. I also remember back in the day when you hear the episode titles of upcoming shows, they had the season 5 episode, Dr. Bashir, I presume. So I thought, hey, here's another James Bond Bashir episode. Of course, it wasn't. That was the episode with the Doctor from Voyager in, where we found out that he was actually genetically modified. So, but it just, I remember being so excited thinking they're going to do more of this Bond franchise in Deep Space Nine. So when you look at all the production notes later of how MGM came down on them, that's not a surprise to me as an adult, but as a child, I was, just hacked off because it was so good. And seeing all our favorite characters as these different characters was just amazing. We haven't really given so much shout out to my favorite, Jadzia Dax. I think she's great in this episode as Honey Bear. And don't forget, Bashir finally gave Jadzia a big snog in this episode, which is something he would have really been enjoying, even under the circumstances. So that was quite a first as well.
Kelvin, what are we talking about next week?
Okay, so next week we are looking at All Good Things 100th episode party. We'll be discussing how All Good Things came to be and our personal journeys with podcasting and Star Trek, and there might be some cocktails involved as well. So how exciting. I think I've joined at precisely the right time.
Absolutely. We hope the listeners have a lot of fun too, because I know we are all going to have a great time talking next week.
Yes, our personal journeys with podcasting. All right, Kelvin, you have 2 weeks to sum up how you got started.
I don't think that's going to be a very long conversation for me, so maybe I'll just resonate more towards the cocktail side of the equation.
There you go. And listeners, Kelvin makes a very amazing cocktails.
Oh, maybe we could get the cocktail companion involved and read some cocktails for our listeners. I don't know. It's going to be a party, listeners, so join in. While you're listening to the podcast, have a cocktail yourself, as long as you're not driving.
Operating heavy machinery.
Well, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet your thoughts at AllGoodPod. We'd love for you to reach out. We love the interaction. Please follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find us by searching their master feed. So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you are not cosplaying as Bond and saving the world from annihilation by giant lasers?
Excellent Dr. Evil reference there. So when I'm not doing that, you can find me on Facebook in the BQN Facebook group and in the Federation Facebook group, or I'm on Twitter and Instagram under Kelvin's Timeline. So feel free to stop by there too. And Amy, where can people find you when you're not being a sexy Bond girl?
I would, but I have some information for you. Well, you can find me here on the network where I am co-hosting Galaxy Class and Union Federation. I'm also on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but really my favorite place in Facebook and in our group, BQN Collective. And Mark, when you're not using corks as weapons, where can people find you?
Well, my dear, when I'm not doing that, people can find me on the BQN Collective Facebook page. They can also tweet at me at MarkWhite207 on Twitter. They can also listen to my show It's Green if they become a patron of the network on Patreon. So please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN. This way you won't miss any of our fine shows like Union Federation with Amy Nelson, Galaxy Class with Amy Nelson, History with the Szilagys, Infinite Diversity, Mickey's Marvels, Sasquatch, Trexperts Quiz occasionally with Miss Amy Nelson, and What's the T-Beb?
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. Special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Join the Hive to enjoy It's Green, as Mark hosts, Amy's Math Moments, which I host, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind second Saturday of each month. We get our patrons and hosts, and we get to talk to each other. It's really fun. So please check out the details on patreon.com/BQN. Now, also, a very limited time, you can catch It's Green holiday special that has been dropped. So go find the Hive Mind, subscribe, and you get to hear an episode of It's Green with, oh, can I say Santa? Ooh.
You can say Santa.
Yes, so please check that out. You have until December 31st.
Well, if you guys have been curious to check out It's Green, now is your chance. Thank you for listening.
And we hope you'll join us as we search out
All good things.